It made me think of when Kamina and Simon came to the surface for the first time in Gurren Lagann.
Oh, yeah,
Because he's
Yeah,
stuck underground, and
yeah.
suddenly it's revealed to him there's this whole fucking world up above,
Yeah.
and it's all futuristic and amazing. And he thought that the world was so limited, and
Yeah.
that part of it really, from then on, I was invested.
Yeah.
And that part, they got to that part pretty quick. So
Yeah, yeah.
for anyone who's curious, we're talking about Red Rising, a trilogy by some guy who wrote it.
Yeah, some guy.
Anyway, Google it. Red Rising.
Red Rising. It's pretty good. The first one's really good.
First book very good. Second and third books pretty good.
Pretty good, not as good.
Not as good.
The first book far and away much better. Sorry, I was just distracted by something, that's all.
All right.
Anyway, so we're back, and we're drinking some beer.
Drinking beer.
I've got a little IPA from Bemidji Brewing in Bemidji, Minnesota, or Bemidji, I should say. It's delicious. And Jake, I got you, Mr. Maltman over here, something also from Bemidji called Red X.
Red X.
Red X. Oh,
Look at that.
Did I forget my Post-it note? I bet I totally did.
We got this.
Yeah, we got it. All right. So we had, we were, we could talk about Marvel movies.
We could talk about a can of worms, though.
Yeah, we were struggling to come up with any particular topic because there's so many things out there that are terrible and terrible. And you were just saying, what were you just saying there, Jake, about how we were poisoning each other? Not with alcohol.
Not only with alcohol. So we have a problem of whenever we do experience some new thing in the media, that we talk to each other about said thing, and we tend not to like things. So when we share that with the other, then suddenly the other person will just not watch that thing or play that game or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. So we basically just end up not watching things.
Yeah. Not the same things as each other, which makes them hard to have in-depth discussions about when only one of us has fully experienced it.
Yeah. I mean, my example of this is that horrible book series that I always go back to because I so desperately want to talk to somebody about how terrible this series is. And that was The Passage by Justin Cronin, I want to say. It's a trilogy of books, and I do not recommend. They are super long, super boring. The story goes nowhere and is nonsensical and even comical at times. It's unbelievably bad. And because that is
on that glowing recommendation, I decided not to read these books.
Yeah.
Go figure.
And yet somehow I managed to make it all the way through Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. Although I think he's added books in there in places now, like
That's
inserted ones, like something prior to The Gunslinger. And I think there's like now a 3.5 book in there someplace.
Yeah.
So now
that's another series we could talk about sometime, because I know he considers it like his magnum opus or whatever he wants to call it. But
so unfortunate.
honestly, as far as storytelling, it's a terrible story.
It's a terrible. The narrative.
It's a very well written, terrible story.
Yeah, it is.
If you look at it on the whole.
Yeah, Stephen King is an excellent writer. He writes in a way that is engaging and really fun to read. He is really hit or miss with the actual narrative, which is really unfortunate. Because if he can converge those two things into a single point, and he's done that with some of his influenced stuff for movies. The Shawshank Redemption is a great example, where I think he was the head. I think he wrote it. I think it was based on a book of his, in fact, and I think he wrote the screen treatment as well. That is a fabulous movie. It's so good. And I'm trying to remember. There's a few other movies that are basically his movies that have also done exceptionally well. And then there are some, in fact, there are many that are not so good.
You didn't watch either of the new It movies, I'm
No,
guessing.
no.
I watched the first one, and it was fine. The
Yeah.
second one I heard was quite a bit worse, so I just didn't bother. Uh,
I heard the second one had a lot of rehashing of the first one.
yeah, for some reason, it seemed like such an obvious. Okay, there's their younger selves, and then there's their older selves. But for some reason, it sounds like the second movie still delved into them being young a whole bunch still, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It seems like that's the most obvious way to split up these two movies is just
Yeah.
have them be young in the first one and their adult selves in the second one.
Yeah. I will admit to a curiosity in those movies, mostly because I think the costuming and the effects look pretty great. But that's based on like the YouTube clips that I've seen and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I'm not much of a horror guy. It doesn't really do much for me. I'm not terribly squeamish, but a little bit. So, and although I will also say that I really enjoyed Army of Darkness, The Evil Dead. I think that what's the series? There were like 3 seasons. Ash versus the Evil Dead. Oh,
right?
so fun, so good, and so fun to watch. But that is just silly, stupid.
Yeah.
It's not mean spirited. It's not trying to like gross you out necessarily or really disturb you. Gesundheit.
Excuse me.
So I like that. I mean, I like that. Similar to like Doom Eternal. Or the new Doom games, that are not horror games at all. They're basically comic. It's gratuitous violence. It's very graphic, but it's also done in a ridiculously over the top and silly way that really works for me. The gameplay's not like it's not. These games are not as good as advertised. I would say. I think they are in some ways overrated, but they are super fun. So anyway. So I don't really want to talk about Marvel because I just don't want to talk about Marvel.
Fair enough.
So let's talk about Tiger King.
Oh yeah, Tiger King, the greatest new show on Netflix that I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
Oh.
And I have no intention to see it.
I don't either.
think
I
it
don't
looks
care.
terrible. Yeah.
I don't really like basking in filthy, terrible people and the filthy, terrible things they've done.
Yeah.
That just doesn't hold a lot of appeal for me. I need someone to root for, at least a little.
Yeah. There are some stories out there that are just they're important. They can be important stories just because of how disturbing they are and how full of terrible people they are, and they can serve as a moral lesson to people, but they need to be portrayed in that way. Like why you shouldn't be like these people. And it seems like things like Tiger King, and I'm thinking back to other reality, Honey Boo Boo and some of these, it's wallowing in this filthy, nasty, I cannot get behind that. I will not watch that stuff. It just, it's gross.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in it. It just kind of makes me angry that people like this exist.
Yeah.
Like, I already know that people like this exist, and just knowing that makes me angry enough. I don't need to watch a whole, 8-hour show depicting their lives to just make me more angry about it.
No.
I don't care if it is ridiculous and you can laugh at it. It still makes me angry at the end of the day. And I don't like being angry. Not something I get excited about.
Give in to your anger.
Yeah. All right, Pappy.
So we're not going to talk about Tiger King. So this has been a little while, but one of the other, we were actually, when I was talking about my Post-it note, we had written down a bunch of things, and Tiger King was on there. The Mandalorian was on there. Now, we watched the Mandalorian trailer.
Sure did.
And that was the first experience with the Mandalorian I ever had. And I kind of remember the point in the trailer where I just became disengaged. Now, interestingly, the show is not terrible.
Not terrible.
It's utterly inoffensive.
I think the way I put it was it is the best Star Wars that Disney has made.
Agreed.
Problem is that does not say much
That's
for
a pretty low bar to clear.
Super low bar to clear. I can't say that I liked the show.
Yeah.
It played it too safe for me.
Yep.
It was too slow moving, and I fundamentally disliked the handling of the Mandalorian himself in quite a few ways. Mostly that he keeps getting saved by coincidence.
Yeah.
Constantly. I want him to be competent. And I never got that sense from him. If it weren't for pure luck saving his ass over and over again, the guy would be dead 20 times over.
Yeah, he was occasionally portrayed as competent.
That's the problem. I felt like he was always portrayed as competent, but his actions didn't demonstrate competence.
Yeah, he kept getting into situations that if he was really as competent as he should be, he would never have been in those situations in the first place.
Yeah.
It was all too coincidental. It just never really pulled together. And like you said, the narratively, there's just not enough there.
No, so little. No, if he was this ultra competent dude who kept getting in, see, what's the word for it? You can get characters into trouble by coincidence, but you can't continually get them out of trouble by coincidence. That doesn't make for a good character.
No.
The only exceptions are characters who are kind of meant to be like that. I think of your Han Solo.
Yeah.
Han Solo can get out of things by luck because that's
his
the kind of character that Han Solo is. Mandalorian, no. That is not the type of character that he is portrayed to be.
No.
So that's not how it should be with him.
Yeah.
It bothered me every time he'd get saved by some random bystander.
Yeah.
Is that in the first episode? He's getting mauled by those two-legged lizard things, and what's his name comes and shoots one of them, or I don't know what he does. He saves him. He's never met this guy in his life, and he saves his ass. And in the next episode, he's getting mauled by whatever the thing was in that cave, and Baby Yoda shows that he has the Force for the first time.
Yeah.
He had no idea that Baby Yoda could save him.
No.
Absolutely none. That was pure coincidence.
Yeah.
In both of those situations, his ass would have been dead if not for these completely random circumstances that he had no control over, no knowledge of even, that saved him. And that doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah. So, and the whole series to me felt a little bit too PG. And I'm not asking for something that is really hardcore, but it felt so safe. Not PG-13, PG.
Yeah.
It felt way, way too safe. It was not as squeaky clean as some of the stuff you saw in the prequels, that really rubbed me the wrong way. Everybody, their clothes and stuff like that in the prequels looked everything looked like they just got it from the tailor.
Yep.
Just right off the rack and it looks brand new.
Mm-hmm. Right off the costume rack.
Yeah.
Is more accurate.
Yeah.
Because everything looked like a costume.
Everything looked like a costume. Yeah. Nothing looked like clothes that they could have lived in or worn for
None
real.
of it.
But and this had a little bit of that, not quite as bad.
Not quite. It was not so much with the environments or the costumes. I think it was more to do with the actual actors' makeup in many cases. Makeup and hair all looked a little too... These people look like actors. Am I watching a soap opera?
Yeah.
Not the environments, and for the most part, not the costumes. I thought that the environments and costumes looked pretty much spot on. It was more their faces and hair and things like that.
Or lack of hair in the case of Bill Burr.
Yeah, whichever.
and the fact that they had Bill Burr on this thing, right? Now, I like Bill Burr. I think he's a funny guy. And this, because they had to play this thing so PG, Bill Burr is not a PG guy. Yeah. They should have allowed him to open up a little bit more and let the anger flow. And when I talk about that, I mean Bill Burr anger, not the Force, dark side anger. I just want to see the Bill Burr go the full Burr. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I felt like that was a bit of a missed opportunity. I wanted Bill Burr to be angrier than he was, and there was just a lot of stuff in that show. Some of I don't know how much of the making of it you've seen, but some of the ways that they filmed, you wouldn't have necessarily known, but a lot of that stuff was filmed on the same set. It's some really interesting technology that went into producing that film that I think has really good implications for really high quality and low cost science fiction and other types of genres out there. Not that I have any confidence that the industry can tell a good story anymore, but I think the technology is getting to the point where it could be cheap enough that people outside of Hollywood might be able to utilize these methods and actually put together good content. Um, speaking of good content, my wife and I just made it through Chernobyl. Now, this was the second ride through Chernobyl with me, but I know you've seen Chernobyl.
Yeah, I saw it right when it came out, pretty much.
Yeah.
Excellent. Pretty excellent watch.
I say it was astonishingly good. I didn't know that that anybody could still make content that is as good as that.
Right.
It's little things like Chernobyl that demonstrate to me that there are still some people who are capable of putting together a project that is worthwhile. Like, I haven't heard that much about it outside of a few places, but I don't know why that is not front and center as this is the poster child for how to do it right. And I'm a history guy in the first place, so it really, really worked for me. This was not something that had a bunch of nonsense in it. It was pretty much just the facts.
Yep. They took a few liberties here and there to
and they even point that out at the end.
Concise.
Yeah. And it's so good, astonishingly well filmed, astonishingly well acted, understated in many, many respects, and yet the whole time, I mean, when you're watching it, you can just about feel your heart beating in your chest.
Yeah.
It's so good, and the amount that it displays that there are legitimate heroes, and that this was a lot bigger deal than a lot of us ever really knew. Astonishingly good stuff. Astonishingly good. So and my wife liked it, which is always nice that we actually can watch something together for a change. So, so that was nice.
The sense of dread. And honestly, it gave me more of a sense of horror than most horror movies do.
Yeah.
And it's, a lot of it's very accurate and real.
Yeah.
And that just adds to it, I guess.
I like how they filmed in places like the Ukraine, where some of these reactors are still in service, and some of the cities are the same architecture that was all put up at the same time and all that kind of stuff. It's all part of that kind of Stalinist architecture, which is, it had such a great look, and So out of this number of things that we've talked about, highly recommend Chernobyl. Unbelievably good. Don't need to go into details. I don't want to go into any spoilers. Granted, it's a historical event, so I don't know if there are... It's like, would it be spoiling it if someone says that Apollo 13 has a happy ending? I don't know. This is something that took place back in the 40 years ago or whatever it was, 1971 or whatever Apollo 13 was. I don't remember.
I don't.
Anyway, so Chernobyl was legitimately great. Hit all of the right notes. It had a good look, extraordinarily well acted, very well cast, I would say, as well. I know some people, I think their criticism was that, they should have filmed it in Russian. Well, I'm not sure it would have been good if I had had to read subtitles the whole time.
Yeah, tough to say.
Hard to say. Maybe. I doubt it, though. So I think they did the right thing.
Plus, you'd need a bunch of Russian fluent actors, and chances are those people would actually be Russian. In which
you might have a hard time.
Russia might have an issue with those people after they were in.
Yeah, all of a sudden it becomes a cursed production like Macbeth or something. How some people all these guys are dying. What are they dying from? Radiation sickness. What? Yeah, that's probably not.
Could have had its own issues.
Probably not good. Not a good deal. So what else was on our little sheet? I know we had Castlevania on there.
We did.
Castlevania, not the video game series, but the animated Netflix series, which recently had a third season. And it was okay.
It was the longest season so far, wasn't it?
I think it was. which is
For some reason,
unfortunate.
it had the least happen in it of the 3 seasons.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why it was as long as it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a great look.
Yeah.
Some pretty solid characters, I would say. But not a lot going on. The stakes are all gone this season.
Yeah.
It feels like.
Yeah.
I'm not real sure who to root for other than the obvious
Yeah.
characters to root for. They spent the least amount of time on those characters is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, they spent a lot of time with the villains from the previous season, which I genuinely don't care about.
No, it feels to me like they're trying to set up redemption arcs for the two humans amongst them, but I don't feel like they're redeemable.
Yeah, at the very least to try to make you feel sorry for them, which I don't.
I don't.
Yeah, and of course the stuff with the little monastery business and the chicky chick and the dude guy, son of a gun, the Belmont guy.
Belmont and
whatever.
What's her name?
I don't know.
The speaker.
Those are the characters that I kind of want to follow. I think they're the most interesting. But everything that they do in the entire series, you could have just done that in like 2, maybe stretched it into 3 episodes and been done with it.
They failed to give them any sort of long-term goals.
Mm-hmm.
They made it they almost made a joke of it, how they're just kind of going with the flow.
Yeah.
So I don't feel much there, and the only people putting plans into motion are the bad guys.
Yeah.
And they didn't go anywhere in this season.
No.
So it was just a big setup.
Yeah. It had some serious pacing issues. It's a great looking show. It's very well animated.
Mm-hmm.
The voice acting, I would say generally pretty good.
Pretty good.
I don't have a lot of issues there. Again, it's and I don't have a problem with slow moving stuff. But
always.
I felt like this really suffered from pacing problems and it just narratively didn't go anywhere. I mean, you established, again, I think you could have chopped off half of the amount of time you spent. I mean, it could have been half as many episodes and still had all of the same character stuff that happened with every character that they had in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no reason for it to keep going on and on and on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
With a bunch of nonsense that didn't matter. So that's, would I recommend it? I guess if you're desperate for stuff to watch, I guess. But you'll be better off waiting for the next season and then see if that has a more satisfying conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean, the first season kind of had a cliffhanger-ish ending, and then the second season had a pretty generally closed ending with just a couple of loose ends that were supposed to kick off the next season, which I guess it did.
Yeah.
I guess.
I thought that the second season's, the cliffhangers with those characters were too blatant. It was so clearly a setup. That kind of thing bugs me.
Yeah.
You can just have those be loose ends, and you don't have to make a big thing about showing us how they're loose ends.
Yeah.
That kind of crap bugs me.
Yeah.
Just don't tell us what happens, and then you can do something with that later.
Yeah.
Don't have a whole scene of showing us how this person is now out there wandering around doing nothing.
Yeah. Don't so obviously set it up like, oh, well, we have enough money to do a third season, so we're gonna make sure that that we've got a third season coming.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see that as being a great strategy.
It'd be like picture the first Star Wars movie. If after everything that happened at the end of that movie, then all of a sudden you have Darth Vader standing on a bridge somewhere, being like, "We have the location of their rebel base. It's on the ice planet of Hoth," and then it cuts to black.
Yeah, which is how series are basically done.
That's what happens now. But think about how terrible it would have made the ending of that movie.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, you had a good ending, and then you ruined it by having this scene that doesn't fit with this movie.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Which, a lot of movies, they just don't know where to end it anymore.
That's
Case in point, The Last Jedi.
Fuck.
How many endings did they have in that movie?
All of them.
They had all of the endings. It was, in fact, the end of Star Wars as we know it.
Yeah, that's what did it end.
Yeah. So it's just, it's one of those things. It's yeah. It gets tough. Gets tough to care.
Franchises, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a problem with things as a whole. I mean, I think about
Sequel baiting.
yeah, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, for instance.
Yeah.
The movie, was it called Avatar: The Last Airbender? Was that the name of the movie?
I think the movie was just called The Last Airbender.
The Last Airbender. Okay, because they couldn't use Avatar because
Avatar had just come out.
Yeah, that's right. So there is a case where they were so sure that they would be making a trilogy that they just made this thing.
Yeah.
And it was so bad.
Let's just throw it together.
Wow. It's like they didn't realize that they could fail.
Mm-hmm.
And they just threw this thing together. It was garbage. It was a flaming pile of garbage.
Hot garbage.
Hot garbage. And it was not good. It was not good. As opposed to the series Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is excellent.
Excellent.
And I'm trying to remember how long ago that was. That's got to be at least 12 or 15 years old at this point.
Yeah, it's getting up
I recently went back to it and hadn't realized that it's in old 4:3 aspect ratio.
I know.
And it's hard to find anything that's been up converted to or upscaled to high definition.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, it is still so much better than the movie The Last Airbender. Certainly wildly better than Legend of Korra, which is hot garbage or cold garbage or just a flaming pile of greasy garbage. I mean, wow. That is the Legend of Korra is to Avatar what the Last Jedi is to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So
very much.
Where everywhere where The Last Airbender succeeded, Korra failed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at some point, we'll have to really go deep on Avatar and the comparison between Korra and Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Because, wow. Mm-hmm. Talk about squandered opportunities. Just everywhere that The Last Airbender was great, Korra fell utterly flat on its face.
Mm-hmm.
Every character in The Last Airbender had an arc. They all grew. They all became more mature. Korra was exactly the same fucking loser at the start as she was at the end.
Yep. And so were her damn friends.
Yeah. The one comic relief character was the only one who had anything that had any semblance of character arc. And that's pretty weak. Pretty weak. Yeah. And it's just sad because they had such a rich world that they could do so much with.
Yeah.
They had an animation studio that was really working hard to do a lot of great stuff, and they just didn't have any clue what they had on their hands, which is weird because it's the same guys who ran it.
Really bizarre. And just the fact that a lot of the story beats in Korra really depended on tearing down already established things from the original series, which I just don't understand. They just over and over again would tear down something from the original series in order to try to prop up this series.
Yeah. And while those were all the best episodes in Korra, they're also the most damaging to the canon.
Yeah, they're the most damaging to the original series, unfortunately.
Yeah. Which I guess if we're going to talk about damaging to the original series, we could talk about Picard and how neither of us have seen it.
Yeah, I'm probably won't.
I will not see it. I refuse. Mm-hmm. I was cautiously optimistic when it was announced. And as soon as they started doing any of the press for it, I was like, oh, no. I see where this is going. This is going to be hot garbage. If you can have hot garbage in the coldness of space, then that's what we got.
Yeah.
It is not Star Trek. It's just not. And it certainly isn't Star Trek: The Next Generation.
No.
It is horrible. It is horrible. So let's see. So how many franchises have we destroyed, or have they destroyed?
All of them?
So yeah,
All the good ones.
all the good ones. Star Wars, no good. That's gonna take some work if they can ever come back. Star Trek, I never watched any Discovery. It looked like garbage. From all accounts that I have been able to ascertain, it is in fact garbage.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Marvel really, but I saw Captain Marvel, so I can see the writing on the wall for Marvel going forward.
Yeah. yeah. Because I'm sure everybody wants to see, 90-pound, what's her face from Thor, Natalie
my God,
Portman, be
yeah.
the next
Be
Thor.
the next Thor. Female Thor.
Yeah, she looks like if she tried to lift a hammer over her head, she would pull a muscle.
Yeah.
And I don't like Natalie Portman in the first place, so
She's another one of those actresses where I'm not sure who does like her.
a lot of people seem to like her. I don't know.
I've never met these people.
I
can't
I
find them.
haven't met them either, but a lot of people seem to like her. Wildly overrated is what I would say.
Yeah, her and Kristen Stewart.
I don't think I've ever seen a Kristen
Like,
Stewart movie.
she keeps getting work, and I've never met anyone who can say anything but mean things about her.
Great.
Both online and in person. I've never seen anyone talking positively about her, and yet she keeps getting work.
Yeah, it must be rough. Must be rough.
And who else? Hermione. Who's that?
Oh, Emma
What's her
Watson.
name? Yeah, she's another one where it's
Yeah.
like she keeps getting work.
Well, she's self-partnered, so she's happy.
Okay. She keeps getting work, but I never see anyone saying anything positive about her. So it's like,
Yeah,
why?
She's terrible.
Nobody likes her.
No.
Nobody likes these people, and yet they keep getting work.
They are just the worst.
Mm-hmm.
They are just the worst. Yeah, it's not good. It's not a good place to be. And if any of you folks out there, now if you're watching us and you've made it this far, you're probably with us on a lot of this stuff. But if for some reason you are a fan of these things, why?
Yeah, why?
This stuff is garbage. These people are garbage.
Let us know in the comments down below. We might read them, maybe.
Yeah, we might. Don't bet on it.
I mean, I won't.
I might. Yeah, it's not something that I have a lot of. I care a lot about. I don't really care what people think. If I did, I'd probably be trying to push the the show on people
Right, yeah.
instead of just
Instead, I'm just
throwing it out
Instead,
there.
I'm just embarrassed.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, what was it that you were saying? There was a comment from. Was it from the Red Letter Media guys?
Yeah. From Red Letter Media. How does it feel to have lived long enough to see all your favorite franchises go up in flames? I think that's what it is.
Oh, did that come from Mike or Jay?
Feels great.
It does. It's really something. So it's I've said it before. I think that it means that there is an opportunity out there for people, especially as the techniques and the machinery and the effects and the cameras and the microphones and all this stuff. We live in a time when there's a lot of innovation happening for a lot of these electronics to make this stuff a lot easier to film.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some pretty good and interesting short films. I'm not a huge fan of like just a lightsaber fight in a short film and stuff like that. But I am oftentimes astonished at the level of quality that they're able to achieve with some of this stuff. It's not as good as a real movie. You can tell that there are still some amateurish things happening. And it just is a factor of budget, obviously.
Right.
But it encourages me that there will be an up-and-coming generation of filmmakers and TV show makers that are going to have enough of the tools available that we're going to start seeing some good stuff again at some point. I don't know when that will be. My guess is it's going to be another few years, but I am reasonably sure that this long dry spell of horrible, out-of-touch filmmaking and TV shows that care more about how you feel emotionally at any given time than an actual story with a powerful narrative that makes sense and characters that have arcs and all that kind of good stuff that, was the foundation of good storytelling for the past, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 years.
Yeah, however long storytelling's been around.
Yeah, that's been around for a while. So I think that there's some stuff that could be on its way, but there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that it's on its way anytime soon.
Nah.
Which is kind of sad. So what else was on our I can't believe I just set it down someplace. I guess
The Witcher.
The Witcher.
I don't know if that was
Yes,
actually on
it was.
there,
That was the first thing I wrote down.
Okay.
So you saw The Witcher. You watched
did.
the entire series.
See, this is an example of what we were talking about before, where we talk to each other about things that we've seen. I was pretty. I liked The Witcher. I would say was not great. Had its own series of issues, but good characters, good character development in certain instances, but had issues for sure. I personally felt that it peaked in the first episode, which is a problem. Because when I talked to this guy, that's basically what I told him. I said, if you'll watch the first episode and you think it's pretty good, you'll probably think the series is okay. He watched the first episode and he wasn't sold. So I'm like, it doesn't really get better.
Yeah. And it's something I can't quite place it. I think I like Henry Cavill for the most part.
I think they made him look really good for the part, in all honesty.
I think so too.
I thought his look was probably the best in the series. Unfortunately, they introduce a side character, a bard or something like that, in like the next episode. I thought he was the low point of the series. And then they introduce a female counterpart who had a ton of potential, but I feel like they really botched her development because she starts out, I don't know, do you want me to spoil anything? Do you care?
Better not.
Okay, I won't spoil anything. I felt like her development was botched in quite a few ways. They had all the right components there to develop her really, really well. I feel like they fucked it up, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's so that's and it seems like there was a lot of potential there. I've never played the games.
I haven't played all of any of the games. I played most of the second one and less than a third of the third one. So.
I own the first two games, and I started the very first one, and this is years ago. It has not aged well.
No.
I would say, especially if you weren't into it right from the start. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't really get into it. Which I am a little bit sad about. Maybe you don't need to have played the first one in order to enjoy the second and third games. I don't know.
I didn't feel like you needed to have played the first one to get into the second game. I can't remember why I stopped playing the second one. I was enjoying it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So there's that. And I don't know. It's just something about the aesthetic it was about 70% of the way there for me. There was something about the way the show looked that just didn't quite get there. And I don't know what it was specifically. I'm reminded of when he's visiting the mage guy in the town at the start, and there's like this illusion with all these the naked women running around and stuff like that. And it felt like it was trying too hard to capture the same type of aesthetic as like the early Game of Thrones seasons. And yet it still felt more cartoony and comic book. It had more of a Marvel feel. It did not feel serious, and it did not look serious. Something was not melding properly, which is really unfortunate, because I thought that his look I thought was really good. I thought they did a pretty good job with the overall aesthetic of the world. I mean, it's still a show, so they're doing what they can, and some questionable effects, I would say, even in that first episode.
I thought that the fight scene at the end of the episode was really a good, gritty, brutal action scene. That was probably the highlight of the episode in many ways. I also liked his, he just kind of wandered into this situation and he tried not to take sides. And he was eventually forced to make a decision. I liked all that. I didn't like because they had with the little girl with her grandmother.
Yeah, that was
and
totally
stuff going on.
disconnected.
Yeah, I thought it was a mistake that subplot even existed in this season, in all honesty, because they keep going with that, and it's always the worst part of every episode it's in.
Okay. Well, all right.
I think they should have left that out of this season entirely.
That's kind of a spoiler in and of itself.
Yep. I mean, it is and it isn't.
It is.
Obviously, they were going to keep going with that.
Right. So that's one series on Netflix. Another series on Amazon was The Boys. Now, this one I was a lot warmer to. I wasn't 100% of the way there, but I did think it was a lot of fun.
I really liked The Boys, if I'm being honest. I liked The Boys a lot more than I liked The Witcher.
Yeah. Well, considering that I actually watched the whole thing and generally enjoyed it, oddly enough, and I don't know anything about the comics that it's based off of. Sounds like the comics go way deeper, far more
way darker too.
Way darker, which is crazy. Which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, because The Boys, this series is
pretty dark.
Damn dark.
Yeah,
it's not for the light of heart.
No, it's pretty disturbing, and it had an uncanny ability to like switch that, like a light switch, like it just flipped dark.
Yeah. Because it could be pretty funny too. It had a lot of levity to it at different times. But really dark themes, really disturbing stuff as far as characters, superhero characters, and what they're capable of, and the fact that at the end of the day they're still just people.
Yeah, they're still just
with all the problems that people have. You give a normal person that much power, you're gonna have issues.
Yeah,
with a lot of them.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Not all of them.
No.
Some of them are good, but a lot of people just have no self-control at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's and that is it's the theme of the show, and I think it's a good and interesting theme. It's worth exploring, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I really disliked the cliffhanger ending.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It's mostly I don't, and it could go anywhere. The whatever is going on with the guy's wife, that really rubbed me the wrong way, because he's obviously been thinking about her a lot. He's thought that she's been dead or something, and have this be what is going on. And I know it's supposed to be shocking. It feels, now don't get me wrong, it could be explained away perfectly reasonably in the next season, and I fully intend to watch the next season.
Yeah.
But it didn't quite make sense to me that she would have just abandoned this life. There was no context to it.
Nope.
In the show's defense, we only ever see it from his point of view, so we don't know what her point of view is.
Yep.
So I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, but that did rub me the wrong way. And it kind of tainted a lot of the rest of the series for me.
Yeah.
In a sense. So.
I guess I just kind of accepted it as, you know what, we're going to get answers. I hate waiting, but it is what it is. We're going to get answers, assuming another season is made, which the other season is being made, but now probably going to be pushed back because of wonderful world events.
Yep. The unspeakable things that are happening in the world that shall not be named.
Unspeakable.
Yeah. And depending on when you're watching this, that could mean anything.
Yeah.
Who knows? Is there anything else on our Post-it note that I had written down? I mean, I'm sure there are other things floating around out there in the ether. I know I watched the movie Onward. That's the Pixar one. Wildly overrated. I would not recommend. Although if you're looking for just a thing to watch, it's also not the worst thing ever. It's just not very good. And Pixar has got a pretty reasonably high bar. Here's how I would describe it. The first 10 minutes of the movie Up, is also the best 10 minutes of the movie up. The rest of the movie I couldn't care less about, but that first 10 minutes of the movie is pretty legitimately great. And this movie basically makes you wait until the end of the movie for anything that is worth watching. The rest of it I genuinely don't care about. The lead up to it, it's a bunch of lead up for a 10-minute payoff that is okay, but the rest of the movie is pretty garbage.
Not a glowing review.
No. So is it the worst thing ever? No, but in comparison to other Pixar movies, it's great. And I think Pixar is a little bit on the overrated side, but this is definitely one of the lowest on that totem pole of Pixar movies.
Yeah.
So that's a glowing review.
Mm-hmm.
So and it went practically straight to Disney Plus, which
Right.
whatever.
Did it have a theatrical release?
I don't know. I think it might have.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't really care. I wouldn't have seen it in the theater anyway.
No.
Because I didn't think the previews made it look very good. And I could dig into it a little more, but you'll probably watch it because it is relatively kid-friendly and all that kind of stuff. And it has the token gay character in it. And if you don't blink, you might not miss it.
Way to go. Way to go, Disney, Pixar.
They're so tolerant.
They know how to put just enough of that into the movie so that they can edit it out for China.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yep.
That's
They're so
right.
progressive.
Yeah.
So progressive.
So progressive. And I like how people think that people actually care. I don't get it. I just don't
No,
get it.
they're pushing that agenda. They're trying to further...
Agendas don't work in narratives. You cannot push an agenda in a narrative and hope that you have a good narrative. That's not how narratives work.
And they're also only pushing that agenda in
certain places.
And keeping it in the country where that agenda is also basically completely accepted already. Mm-hmm. They're definitely not going to try to push it in China where it's not being accepted.
Yeah.
They'll push it here, though, where basically everyone already is okay with that agenda.
Yeah. But then they can proclaim that they're doing all this
so
super
much
stuff. Oh, look at us. Look at how good we are. We're so good. We're so good. We're good people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I didn't care in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like people are free to be people.
Yeah. Let's just move on.
If it doesn't hurt me, I don't care.
I genuinely don't care. Yeah. Which is actually funny. If we're going to talk about human sexuality for just a moment, the older I get, and this is interesting because I remember, maybe it's just because as you get older, you just have fewer impulses, I guess, for whatever.
Okay.
It's as a young person, the romantic end of things was compelling. The older I get, the less romantic things seem in movies. And maybe that's just because movies nowadays are terrible.
Yeah.
And they just don't do a good job of developing relationships and explaining why people are falling in love or that they are falling in love.
No, I recognize that there was a problem in cinema where, you'd have your characters, you have attractive male lead, you have attractive female lead, and they just end up together at the end, regardless of whether they have any actual chemistry or not. Essentially, just as a result of them going through all these extreme circumstances together.
Yes.
Like that's not the foundation of a lasting relationship.
Right.
99% of these relationships would be done within 2 years.
That's right. 2 years is generous.
Oh, I know. But, you go through a crazy, potentially world-ending event together, and you're like, this is meant to be.
Yeah.
So, maybe 2 years.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, and then they're like making out at the end in the rubble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I give it 2 weeks.
Yeah, which is funny. And I never saw the second Speed movie. I think they even made a third one. I don't even know. Keanu Reeves wasn't attached to any of those, for better or for worse. I know that kind of hurt his career in the long run because the powers that be at the studio got real mad at him. But then he went on to do things that were awesome, like The Matrix. So. So there's that.
The first Matrix.
The first Matrix. Yeah, let's
save
not get
that
too
for
far.
another day.
Yeah. So at some point we will do a deep dive on The Matrix because it's worth a deep dive, and there's a lot to unpack there. But the first Matrix movie really is the only one that's worth seeing.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh, I suppose I should clarify my earlier statement about as long as it doesn't hurt me, people can do whatever they want. I should say as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, people can do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not okay with pedophilia.
Oh, jeez. Talk about
Just
going
don't
dark
wanna,
here.
just don't want to leave that door open for interpretation.
Yeah, yeah. There are limits. There are limits. Yes. Yeah. No, that's a fair point. Also deeply disturbing.
Yeah, super.
Yeah, and so I was thinking about Speed because of the way that those romantic relationships are, and then there's movies like National Treasure, which does a lot better job of developing a relationship between kind of the female and male protagonists. It's still pretty weak, but you
said National Treasure?
Yeah.
Okay, because they were like previously married even in the first one, weren't they?
No, that was the second one.
That was the second one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess
And I'm
I
not
don't
sure if they
remember
were
well enough.
married or if they were just together and then they separated in the second one. I don't. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Same.
But I mean, that's a pretty decent movie. The first one, especially, I thought was a lot of fun. Very adventure-y. I mean, it was like a knockoff Indiana Jones movie, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. It's like Indiana Jones, not as good,
Mm-hmm.
but still pretty okay. But they develop a relationship, and there's kind of this push and pull between the two characters, but they kind of end up, you can see the chemistry start to work over the course of the movie. So that's a lot more romantic, I guess, in a way. But
Right.
I don't think it's explicitly romantic.
Not quite.
That's not really what the movie is about.
Nah.
So, but even, what's that? And now we're getting way off track, but there's that Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore. In fact, there were two of them, I think. There was Wedding Singer, which
Okay.
is a rom-com
Yeah.
from back in the day.
I'm thinking of 50 First
And 50
Dates.
First Dates. Both of those are actually pretty good movies as far as rom-coms go.
Mm-hmm. Well, in a rom-com, though, that's actually the central focus.
Right.
Is building this relationship between two people.
Yeah. And they actually do a pretty reasonably good job of it in those two
Yeah.
films.
So I was thinking more about movies that are generally more action.
Right.
Where for some reason the male and female
Yeah.
leads end up together, even though
Yeah.
there's no real reason for them to be other than they're in this extreme situation
Yeah.
together.
I mean, I would say that holds true even for movies like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, it does.
like the Gamora and Star-Lord relationship, I feel is a little on the
Super
forced
weak.
side.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot to it.
You never really. They have decent chemistry just because there's good writing involved in the movie.
Mhm.
But there's that level of good writing between all the characters. So
Yeah.
it's not like theirs is special. It just happens to be a mateable pair within the group of 5 characters.
Yeah.
So naturally they end up together.
Yeah. And it's just some of that just doesn't feel necessary. I know that's just Hollywood thinks that, well, we got to cater to the female audience, and so we have to have a romance in here.
Yeah.
Well, do you though? I don't know. I haven't crunched the numbers on it. I'm not sure that you should be crunching numbers on movies. I think you should just focus on making good movies.
Well, they didn't force a romantic subplot into these new Star Wars movies. Oh, wait, there was that Rose character.
Oh,
That went over really well with everybody.
Ooh, yeah. Oofda.
Because she had a big role in the third one.
Oh, man. That's rough, buddy. That's rough. Wow. Yeah, that's...
So, I mean, there's
that's
a good
tough.
example of how not to do it.
Yep. That came out of nowhere.
And
Wow.
then they couldn't decide if they wanted to do it in the third one. They're like, well, let's make it completely ambiguous and make you question why some of these scenes are even in this movie.
Yeah.
But that was most of the scenes in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
Why was
yeah,
this
yeah.
scene here again?
Because it's the only part of we had on film that still had Carrie Fisher alive in it. That's why all of her dialogue made no sense.
Yep.
Not good. Not good. So, I'm trying to think if that leaves us with anything other than Chernobyl that's worth watching.
Yeah, watch Chernobyl and The Boys.
Yeah, there you go. That's so if you're
what I
stuck
got.
indoors, which you may or may not be,
Who knows?
those are as strong a recommendations
Yeah.
as I got.
I could recommend some anime, but I know you haven't seen any of the ones that I would talk about. So.
Yeah, and you've recommended some that I would like to see, and I've even started down the path on some of them, and I just haven't had the time.
Yeah.
Tough to find the time.
There's not that much new anime that's that exciting anymore either.
Yeah.
Anime is its own topic, of course, but
Yeah.
there was a time when just about every series that I could get my hands on of anime I thought was at least worth a watch, but now that's a genre that's so inundated, and it's not
Yeah.
even its own genre really.
It's not.
It's just the medium through which a number of genres are now presented.
And so much animation nowadays has shifted toward a very anime-esque style anyway. You certainly still see a difference between Western animation and Eastern animation,
Yeah.
but so much of Western animation is even influenced by anime and Korean animations and stuff like that. I mean, Last Airbender is a perfect example of, it's obviously Western focused as far as the animation style, but it is heavily influenced by anime style.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, Korra ratchets that up a notch in horrible and stupid ways. So, was there anything else on my Post-it note? I don't remember. I don't really think so. Is there anything else you've watched? I can't remember of anything else I've watched. Everything sucks.
Everything sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Most video games suck now. Most books suck.
Yep.
Most TV shows are terrible. Just another crime drama or true crime drama or some other nonsense about some stupid thing. I don't know how many CSIs and NCISs we need. All of those are garbage in the first place. So, and then, or Bones or whatever. There's the Jim Caviezel one and Castle.
And,
Yeah. Asshole. I mean, Castle.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of those shows, and they're apparently popular because they keep taking them.
Somebody likes them.
Somebody likes them. They're terrible.
They're all kind of the same.
They're all the same. They're all trying to be something that has already been there.
Yeah.
Not. I don't know. It's time to start writing your own stuff that's not based on other stuff.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway. For anybody out there unhappy with the state of modern film and modern TV and modern media at large, books and whatever else have you, throw your own hat into the ring, man. Just write something.
Yeah.
Get a little feedback on it.
I'm pretty okay with things that are clearly amalgamations of other things, like combined into one, as long as you write it well.
Yeah.
You can rehash different story elements from different things. And as long as you do it well, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, what do you think Star Wars is?
Oh, exactly.
That's I mean,
You can do that.
I'm not one of those people who thinks cultural appropriation is a 4-letter word. So I actually think that the act of taking elements from this culture and that culture and mixing them all together is actually how you get new and wonderful things.
Yeah.
So if there's something that you can draw inspiration from, well, you should pursue that. It's there's a lot of things out there. Find something that is new and interesting. It might not be new and interesting to everyone, but if you find something that is new to you, and you find it interesting and it inspires you to do something, geez, pursue that. We live in an age where, anybody can start a YouTube channel. Look at this.
Yeah.
Anybody. Doesn't even have to be good. You could still do it. But you're never gonna do anything unless you try. So, and there's a lot of people out there who are hungry for new and interesting stuff. Not just the same tired tropes that have danced around. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some kind of universal rules, but rules are there for a reason. And rules can be bent and rules can even be broken. And if you do that in deliberate ways and in meaningful ways, that can have its own set of meanings behind it as well. So, not to dive off on a creative class here, but but I'm out of beer.
Same.
So, yeah. It was delicious, though.
It was good.
Yeah, it's just that time. So I guess that brings our episode to a close. Thanks so much for watching and sticking through that kind of scattershot state of modern media madness
Yeah.
and all that nonsense. I think there's reasons to be optimistic and there's a whole lot of reasons to be pessimistic. Maybe one of these days we'll go over things that we like again. It's been a
Maybe.
while.
Yeah.
I mean, we covered a couple
Do
things.
some
I guess.
callbacks.
Yeah. It's about that time.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great time, day, night,
Whatever.
weekend.
Whatever it is, wherever you are, have a good one.
All right. We'll see you later.